Welcome to another edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider. Back after a mini hiatus and back in time for some fireworks, you say, Sam Webb? Fireworks? Hearing a lot about fireworks. It's funny how I put something on the message board, on a VIP message board, and next thing you know, it's all over social media. Funny how that works, huh, fellas? On the VIP message board, and it's on Twitter, it's on Facebook, it's on social media platforms I'm not even on. Funny how that works sometimes. Brice Marich and Steve Lorenz, how you guys doing? You guys doing all right?
Good, real good, Sam. Yeah, good as can be.
You gotta love it, social media, right? Well, folks, listen. As we said the last time on the last episode that we were here, the Michigan Insider has a proud sponsor, Michigan Insider, presented by Wolverine Boots and Apparel. Our friends at Wolverine Boots, America's original work boot. Our friends over there, I got to tell you, they have hard-working blue-collar apparel. And what am I holding in my hand right now? This sweet commemorative boot. Now, this is not your ordinary work boot. This is a special limited edition work boot, a blue collar work boot. See, this is the 1,000-mile Team 144 commemorative work boot. The 1,000-mile, see, I'm going to hold this up for the camera. Make sure that's in focus. Team 144. I'm trying to hold it right, so it's coming up right. Team 144. There it is. 1,000-mile Team 144 work boot. Now, it's a premium boot for the ultimate Michigan fan. Now, when I got this, they said it was handcrafted, and they gave me the whole description, and they said it was to celebrate the team. And it said, it was a hard-working team that got the job done. And what was the job? To win the national championship. So this boot is meant to be worn, or at least to represent a hard-working individual that is going to get the job done. Comes in this cool box. And if you look at the inside of the box, Wolverines don't stop till the job is finished. Oh, it's a sweet box. I mean, this is attention to detail. But, if you look at all the apparel, and Ben, if you can bring up the site, because they have a whole line of Wolverine branded apparel. And if you know anything about what Wolverine has been doing with student athletes at Michigan, I mean, the brand of apparel has represented blue collar apparel for the blue collar individual for a long time. So it's synonymous with hard work. But the attachment to student athletes at the University of Michigan has been such a great partnership. And they supported students and student athletes in NIL from the onset. And so that has been such a great endeavor for these student athletes. And so you see so many football athletes in the mix, from Will Johnson to Colston Loveland, Max Bredesen, Donovan Edwards, all these guys. But it's not just the football student athletes. We've seen, field hockey all across the board. They support all of the student athletes across the spectrum. That's one of the great things about Wolverine. It's about the student athlete and not just about one sport or two sports, not just the big sports. It's the entire spectrum, because it's about the work and not just about the shine. And that's what you like about Wolverine, blue collar and hard work. And that's what you find with Wolverine. And that's why we're aligned with Wolverine here at the Michigan Insider. So be sure to check them out over at Wolverine.com. And so, fellas, it is time to talk about the latest and the greatest with these Wolverines, this recruiting class, and a guy that we've been talking about for a long time. This is, without a doubt, the biggest recruiting story in a long time for Michigan. Andrew Babalola is the highest rated offensive lineman in the history of Michigan football. That's not hyperbole, Steve Lorenz. He is an absolute animal. I don't like to speak in hyperbolic terms, but this is an enormous get for Sharon Moore, for Michigan football. If you want to talk about the last 3 years and the foundation of a championship, it was the offensive line. So it's fitting that for his first recruiting class, the anchor for it is the most significant, the biggest offensive lineman, literally and figuratively, in the history of Michigan football.
Yeah, Overland Park, Kansas native. Michigan, I mean, it was kind of an interesting recruitment, right? It felt like it was going to be over a while ago. Kind of went along for a little while. Some other programs like Auburn, Missouri, Oklahoma really tried to make a push, but this was pretty much most of the time between Michigan and Stanford, which I think says a lot about what type of person Michigan's getting also. I remember when we did the event for the barbecue and talking to some of the kids committed to Michigan. At the time, things were there was a lot of word about Babalola and stuff, and the commitments were working on him really hard. And I think it might have been Eli Owens probably, who called him, he's like, Andrew's nerd smart. And he's like, I mean that in like the best way. He's like, that dude's like one of the smartest people I've ever met is him, and so I don't know if his game is similar, but he kind of reminds me of the way he handled his recruitment. Grant Newsome was very thorough, just kind of a kid wise above his years a little bit at an early age. And I get the same impression from Babalola. I don't think it's a coincidence that he and Grant Newsome clicked as well as they did on the recruiting trail. Michigan got in. I don't remember. I think they were sort of in the middle of the offer list, but we immediately identified him as like, this is a guy that Michigan's going to go after. He knew Andrew Sprague, both Kansas City area guys, friends to an extent, I believe. And it felt like Michigan was going to be in it. But yeah, you can't really understate, what this addition means. And really, let's be honest. I mean, it's a nice momentum builder. It's good perception-wise pickup for Michigan too right now. They need to really finish strong with this class. I think last year's class was really nice. We talk about the 5 guys they signed up front last cycle, right? I mean, really all 5 of those guys, there was something to like about those guys with Blake Frazier, Andrew Sprague, Guarnera. I know who we even heard about in the spring as being a guy that they're really excited about. But yeah, Babalola's ceiling as a prospect is immense. I mean, he's a guy I think absolutely has first round NFL draft potential if he pans out. I think one of the comparisons, I can't remember, it was somebody on our national team compared him to actually former Michigan target, ended up at Ohio State, was Nicholas Petit-Frere, who I believe was also a 5-star ranked guy. I think he was close, if not a 5-star, but similar in that the ceiling is huge. It's just a matter of getting there. Is he a first-year guy? I don't know, but I don't necessarily think he has to be with what they signed in the class ahead of him still. But either way, I'd be shocked if he's not a guy that's not a multi-year starter down the road, right? I mean, you're talking about he's the number 2 ranked offensive lineman in the class behind David Sanders, I believe, and actually moved up in our last re-rank 4 or 5 spots. So he's knocking on the door for top 10 overall in the country. And yeah, can't say enough about the pickup from a player, person, and perception standpoint.
Brice, Babalola?
I think Steve kind of nailed it on the head there. I think, first off, perception-wise, how the season's been trending and how the class has been going with some other guys, I won't say looking to flip, but they're looking at other programs. You needed a big recruiting win, kind of get the morale of the class back. And like Steve said, I think with Babalola, and you're watching the clips right here, super unique prospect, because as high as I think his ceiling is, I think he could have somewhat of a lower floor just because he's so new to the game. What people don't realize, he's only played the game 2 years. Like, this is a guy that is just learning the sport. But as you watch him, you're like, this does not look like someone that's just picked up a helmet and just ran out there for the first time. Like, he looks incredible. And I think right now, 6'6", 280, you had about 20 pounds, 25 pounds to his frame. And, I know a lot of recruiting pundits were kind of saying, well, he might take a year or two. Or I think right away, and I know how Sharon likes to work the offense, use your extra lineman. You know how Michigan loves to use that extra lineman. I think he puts on 20 pounds of good weight. You get him in the weight room right away. I see him sing in the field right away. I really love his potential. He's almost like a nimble bear. This guy played AAU basketball with Andrew Sprague, and I joked with him and Andrew when I saw him, and he's like, this guy is incredible for his height and weight and how he can, be on the hardwood. So overall, I think this was a huge win out for him. Michigan, but I think Sharon needed this. I think Grant Newsome needed this to show that they can still do this, right? This is their bread and butter. The offensive line is where they want to be known for, what they want to kind of center their offense around. And like Sam, like you said, their success, that's where it came from the past 3 years. Winning the Joe Moore Award 2 years. And even the third year, when they didn't win it, they won the national title. So obviously they've been doing something right up front. I love the class. Pairing him with Avery Gash, who I think is a phenomenal in-state lineman, and Caden Strayhorn, who I think has been fabulous down at IMG. I love that trio right there. I know Michigan has looked at a fourth lineman, Nolan Davenport, who I just wrote up article on. He's committed to Wisconsin right now. He'd be the other tackle in this class. I'm not sure they're going to get a fourth, but if you ended with these three and you backfill it, obviously, with the 5 you had signed this past previous class, that's phenomenal. 8 linemen, I think they're all guys that can hit the field early, but Babalola for sure is the centerpiece. This is the headliner of the class, and this is a guy, again, that moves the needle. Like when we talk about recruiting classes, who's the face of the class? And right now, it's Babalola.
Mm-hmm. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. You watch his tape, you don't see guys that big be able to move like him. The basketball athleticism that he's able to bring to the football field is uncanny. A guy that's 6'6", 6'7", that first can bend like him, that is as nimble as he is. And then the power, the flexibility, the dexterity. It is unreal that he can move like that. And then when you see a guy that can have the kind of disposition that he has, see, you worry about an offensive lineman that's too nice. I think, I think, not to talk about any of these guys that we see, that we've seen on any of Michigan's offensive lines here of late, but there have been some nice guys in some of these recruiting classes, but some of the guys that we saw on like last year's line, like Zach Zinner wasn't a nice guy on the field. Trevor Keegan definitely wasn't a nice guy. Like you like the guys with that kind of disposition out there on the football field. And you can see with the way that Babalola plays, he brings some of that nastiness on the offensive line with unbelievable athleticism. Unbelievable athleticism. And so when I say I don't like to speak in hyperbolic terms, I am always careful to talk about what a guy's going to be. But in this particular instance, I don't think you have to qualify. Like he has a floor of he's going to be really good. Like, he's going to be really good. It'd be very hard for this guy not to be an NFL player. He's he's, knock on wood, he'll have to get hurt to not be an NFL player. That's how good of an athlete this dude is. Like, he would have to not try to be an NFL player. His size, his athleticism. If this kid can just put on, before he gets to college next year, if he just puts on 20 pounds, he's what, 280 now? If he comes in at 305 at least, he can play as a freshman. And you don't say that about, you guys know this, you don't see freshman offensive linemen play. This guy can play as a freshman. Like, he's unreal. It's like, he's the real deal. So, yeah, they got themselves one with this dude. I didn't think I would see another one like David Sanders. They had to be really, really disappointed, considering they were the first ones to offer David Sanders. Like, he was really, really, he was liking them, and they had a leg up. They got Jaden Davis. They got Channing Goodwin. They had all the things going for them with David Sanders, and then they fell off the list. And it's like, how could you fall out of the running with him? You got all the things lined up with him, right? Oh, man. And then you got the next best thing. I don't see a difference. I don't know about you, Steve and Brice. I don't see a difference between David Sanders and Babalola. They're the same guy to me. I don't know about you guys.
Minimal, right? Sanders maybe a little bit taller, a little bit longer, maybe, but Babalola might be a little more athletic, right? So no, I mean, yeah, it's funny, to know Michigan was like the first offer, and they signed 2 kids from his school and almost signed a third, and they were out like 2 months afterwards. This is kind of an odd deal, but no, I mean, yeah, either pick take your choice. If you can't get both, getting one of those 2 guys is huge. So
yeah, big time pickup. And maybe the guy that starts the fireworks show. Matter of fact, I think he's the calm before the storm. When I made the post on the board to give people a little history, I had gotten a text. I want to say it was a couple of weeks ago now, that Babalola had pledged, and I was gonna put in a crystal ball, but you never want to jump a kid, and he decided to delay his announcement, and so I went to the board, and I said, hey, so first it was the crystal ball, and then it was a couple of days later, it was, hey, he's gonna announce today. And so at that point I said, hey, fireworks are coming, or I got a gut feeling that some news is about to come down. That was the day that he was going to announce. Well, he didn't announce that day for whatever reason. I think there was some family stuff that he had going on. And, but it's going to happen. Just, it was a matter of timing. And so I said, hey, look, fireworks delayed doesn't mean fireworks denied. All right. It's going to happen. It's just a formality. But you know what? I'm always super cautious with this kind of thing. I probably should let things fly. I wouldn't just lead you on. But hey, I could probably let a few more things like this fly. I know that there are some things that are happening. I'll let you know this without getting into details. There are some things that will look like they're on the verge of happening if they play their cards right. If all these things fall into place like they are setting up to at the moment, it'll make you forget about a lot of losses that have happened in the past, right? It'll calm a lot of hurt feelings that you've had over the years. Names like Sean Parker and Travis Johnson, and I'm thinking about all these things. Ronald Johnson. I mean, I'm Jai Eugene. It'll, all those broken hearts that you've had over the years in recruiting. It'll make you forget about those things. If all these They play their cards right, and these ducks fall in the road, and they're looking like they're lining up like that. So, look like these fireworks are just over the horizon. Made that post on the message board. And boy, people took some liberties with that. Did they not, Steve and Brice? They took some liberties. And they started attaching names to that, which is fine if you want to do that. I mean, you went and said I said names, which I didn't. But, you attach names to it. Now, here's what I'll say. I believe that the fireworks are lining up soon. Now, they have to continue to I thought some fireworks were going on right now. I thought that's not what's going on the phone right here. Though they have to continue to dot some I's and cross some T's. But just because things aren't going on, let me make this very clear. Just because things aren't going on social media doesn't mean things aren't going on. See, you think, and some of these people who don't really know, aren't really inside, don't really have the connections that you think they have and that they think they have, just because they don't know and they can't see them going on, that doesn't mean they aren't going on. It's a whole lot going on. And there's a whole lot being lined up. And if they continue to line up like they lined up with Babalola, and like they're lining up right now as we do this podcast, right? Like I'm feeling like there's some things lining up as we do this podcast. Like you guys know, like I'm sitting on the hopper. I'm ready to. I am literally, Steve and Brice know, I am literally sitting here right now, ready to hit post. I'm ready to hit post right now. I'm just waiting on the call. I'm just waiting on the call. Ready to hit post. So, just gotta be patient. So that's how close some of this stuff is.
I'm gonna start calling you Uncle Sam.
That's how close some of it is. So
Uncle Sam.
Be patient. Be patient. Let things play out. You won't know everything that goes on. It won't always be on social media. You won't always see someone doing this and doing that on Twitter or Instagram. You just have to wait. And then we'll let you know when it goes down or when it's about to go down. And we'll post it on the message board. We'll have some specials going on, some VIP specials going on that you can take advantage of. You can follow us over on the Michigan Insider. So be sure to take advantage of. We got one going on right now, don't we, Steve? A VIP promo going on right now. So be sure to take advantage.
Yeah, 50% off. It's going to go all through the weekend. I would advise people to latch on now. That gets you on for a whole year too, So even at 4-3, I think there's a lot of really good things coming down the pipe for Michigan right now. So, and we're all just kind of chilling and waiting here right now. So
yeah, and I'm not just talking about one guy. So that's the other thing. People keep attached. When I say fireworks, there's an S. It was never talking about one dude. This was never about one guy. All right. So that was the other thing that people were getting twisted. So on to other things, guys. Michigan got another commitment here recently, right, Brice?
Yeah, they got the 2026 class to join quarterback Brady Hart and cornerback Brody Jennings. Jaylen Pile, 6 foot. I want to make that clear. He's 6 foot because I know a lot of people say Michigan recruits shorter guys. 6 foot, 175 from Dallas, Texas. And this is a guy, Sam, that they had been on for pretty long. He had been up to campus several times. He actually came up for the barbecue at the big house. And for the camp portion, he actually worked out with Brady Hart, who really connected with him, really liked him as a route runner. He had told me he had great ball skills, and this is a wideout that he kind of wanted to work with and kind of build a rapport with in the future at Michigan. So a lot to like about him. He trains with Margin Hooks, one of the top trainers in the country. He works with a lot of top wide receivers, especially in Texas. And he also has a connection with Ron Bellamy, the wide receivers coach, because they both played in the NFL together at the same time. So I think that connection, along with just Jaylen really liked the university, the campus. And I think, people are saying, why is a wideout committing to Michigan? Like, looking at the offense, that doesn't make any sense, right? Well, Michigan has pitched to him that they're going to open up the playbook. They got some top signal callers coming in, like Brady Hart in his class. It's very appealing. And I think the other thing, too, and an easy sell is you can be the change, right? So as much as they're not seeing results on the field currently, you can be that difference maker. This is a guy, junior season right now, currently ongoing, 40 catches, 900 yards, 14 touchdowns. So he's got good production. He's shown great route running. He's shown he can run several routes in even a route tree, which is very impressive for a guy his age. And he's got great ball skills. So I think there's a lot to like about this take. I think he's not the only wideout that's really looking at Michigan seriously, especially with Brady Hart in the fold. And that's not even just the 2026 class. I think that's even the 2025 class. But overall, I think it's a solid take to get a guy from Texas. And, I know his offer list, there's some bigger schools, I think, still kind of waiting to see more from him. But, I think Michigan getting in early, getting that commitment, and then also selling him that you can be the difference and one of the difference makers for the offense going forward is enough to keep him in the fold, even if you were to get an offer from Texas, the in-state school, which I know is a very prevalent school right now because of all the success they have, especially offensively. So great pickup. Good job by Ron Bellamy. He keeps adding quality prospects. I mean, you look at what he's done this cycle currently. Jacob Washington, Andrew Marsh, even a guy and he's not in the class, but Philip Wright, a guy he identified very early that LSU just happened to come back around on, right? And if Philip Wright probably was in the state of Louisiana, he probably would still be committed to Michigan, in my opinion. So, I exactly. You're watching this route right here. I know for the people listening, they're not seeing it, but he just dodged 2 defenders and crossed up the third and scored. So a lot to like about him overall.
Yeah, you see a couple of things. I think in Michigan's overall sort of recruiting approach with receivers. They want to get some size, but in this particular instance, you still got to get some guys that you can stick in the slot that can make things happen. So I think this kind of fits that ilk, Brice. I think you can't get away from that.
So I think the one thing with Pile, he needs an updated evaluation. Do I think he's immediately a top 247 type guy at this point? I don't know. I'm not going to go that far, but he's definitely better. His junior stuff is definitely better than an 85, which is where 24/7 has him currently ranked. He's putting up good statistics in a tough part. I think he plays a Episcopal, what is it, Parish Episcopal, I believe.
Yeah.
Big school, Dallas area. So yeah, definitely needs an updated eval. And yeah, I mean, Ron Bellamy's still getting receivers to commit, even though the receivers have been struggling on the statistically on the field so far this season. So props to him. And the other thing is too, people always ask it's Michigan's putting a lot of time in these other states like Texas and stuff. And those schools can't take all those guys. Like a state like Texas or Florida or California, there are guys coming out of that state who are not going to sign with Texas or A&M or Oklahoma or whatever, who are going to play in the NFL someday, right? So like you have to keep recruiting those areas for the chance that you can get a guy that, because they offered Pile a long time ago, and I want to say Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Washington has offered, Florida State. I mean, for a kid with an 85 rating, those are like legit. That's just those alone, and there are others who have offered. That's a legit offer sheet for a kid who's an 85, and they're all like relatively recent. Sometimes you'll get guys that are offered like really early, and then they kind of their recruitment like slows down. His recruitment has stayed steady throughout. So yeah, nice pickup, really nice pickup in 26, and yeah, they'll finish strong in 25 at receiver, and then kind of like what they did with offensive line this cycle, they're going to need to put together two really good classes back to back at receiver. I feel like to kind of replenish the recruiting aspect outside of if they decide to go portal. On the recruiting side, they got to replenish the younger prospects in that room. So.
All right. And so now, fellas, as we look ahead to some of the things that we can expect in the coming weeks, as far as our recruiting is concerned. I mean, what do you see in the way of other guys as far as recruiting is concerned? Because you got other schools trying to poach some of Michigan's guys. So you got Ivan Taylor, who other schools are coming at, and you got Andrew Olesh, who other schools are coming at. So what's the latest with two of the top recruits, two of the top commitments in Michigan's class right now? Two of the guys that are they taking visits to other schools? Like that seems to be it's a little bit in question with Ivan Taylor. I mean, let's start with him.
So Taylor, yeah. The other thing too, with kids of this caliber, it's always been the case, but even more so now. Michigan could be undefeated number one in the country right now, and they would still be having to fend off other programs for guys of this caliber. So to act like it's a result of how the season has gone so far would be totally inaccurate. I mean, both of these guys in specifically have been considering other programs, or at least picking up the phone before the season even started. So with Taylor specifically, it sounds like if it is somebody else, it would be Alabama. I mean, Alabama was still involved when Michigan flipped Taylor from Notre Dame. So really, from Alabama's standpoint, they've just kind of kept recruiting him the entire time. Will they be successful or not? I think it depends on who you talk to. Kind of feel like Michigan feels good about holding on to him, but again, Alabama, I mean, they've actually struggled on the field relative to their expectations, but they're putting together a crazy class though, and DeBoer's first season recruiting hasn't really slowed down for them, and I don't expect it to. So they're going to be a thorn in Michigan's side until Taylor either solidifies things for good publicly or continues to consider them. But with Olesh, yeah, I mean, Pennsylvania native. I'm sure if there's any coach in the country right now who's trying to negatively recruit Michigan, it's probably James Franklin. He's negatively recruited Michigan every year since I've been doing this, and he's been hired as Penn State's head coach. I believe the family has some connections to Penn State. That's why they were in heavy consideration to begin with. Oregon has also been involved. Not sure how serious that is at this point, but then yes, he's visiting Notre Dame in a few weeks as well. That's kind of a newer development. But all that being said, again, as things stand now, things can change on the drop of a hat. But Steve Kasula's done a great job with Olesh. Mom has always been strongly in Michigan's corner. Tyler Warren's had a great year at Penn State, but Colson Loveland is averaging like 11 targets a game right now in Michigan's offense. And they ran a true freshman out there last week, Hogan Hansen, who looks like he's going to play the rest of the way. So, Penn State, there's a handful. I mean, well, actually Notre Dame too, right? There's always schools that have good tight end pitches, but I think it's the other stuff besides that that has appealed to him and his family with Michigan. So of the two, I don't know. I probably feel like their chances of hanging on to Olesh are a little bit higher, but I think right now I would say they're more likely to hang on to both those guys than they are to lose.
Yeah, I'm with
Right?
you. I'm with you. I feel like strangely I feel more secure with Ivan Taylor. I feel like the level of reassurance that he's been giving is stronger. I don't know if that, I don't know if that if I don't know if that should mean anything if the kid is still talking to other schools, but it just seems like he is, the messages that he seems to be giving off in class circles, like if you talk to other kids and whatnot, he just seems to be giving off the vibe like, I'm not really gonna go anywhere. Like I'm gonna be in the class. In the grand scheme of things, maybe that won't matter. Time will tell. In the case of Olesh, I guess while he's looking at other schools, boy, he seems to have the relationship he has with Kasula, man. That's what has me like, wow, what Warren is doing at Penn State, there has to be some lure there, has to have his attention. These other schools are definitely gonna be able to have a real good pitch, right? Even if you balance that with what Colston is doing, these other schools will be able to come back and say, hey, we've had more success on the field this year. The comeback is always going to be, to me, Kasula. Like, that's his guy. That's who he's vibed with. I really believe that he and Steve's bond, the way he's kind of vibe with that family, is what puts it over the top. In the final analysis, I think that's what's going to keep him hooked in the class. I think Steve's an excellent recruiter. I think Colston's game has gone to another level, not just by virtue of his experience. I think Steve has played a role in that. I think he's an excellent coach. And so I think that's going to play a big role in the grand scheme of things and keeping Andrew in the class. So we'll see. I don't know how you feel about it, Brice.
It's always tough when guys are taking other trips and then, they might be giving optimism to the school they're committed, but they're still going on these trips and still listening to others. So in that regard, I'm a little leery, but I think Michigan, one thing I can say with this coaching staff, the coaching staff, they're very good recruiters. As much as the coaches last cycle, I thought were excellent coaches, I think sometimes they weren't as good on the recruiting side of things. I think this staff excels pretty well on that, especially developing those bonds, like Steve said, with Steve Kasula and Andrew and his family. So if I had to pick today, if they stay in the class or not, I would say both stay in the class right now because they're both also expected to be back eventually on campus. So that's the other thing.
Yeah, gonna be very, very interesting to see how it plays out in the grand scheme of things. If Michigan is recruiting other classes, which they are very heavily, very, very heavily recruiting other classes right now, stands to reason other schools are recruiting their class, right? Turnabout is fair play. So it's a dog.
It feels like Battleship. That's what exactly. It feels like Battleship. One shot over the other to another ship to it. It's insane. It's insane right now. Yeah.
Yeah, turnabout is
And
real.
basketball recruiting. That's not
Yeah,
doing too
yeah.
bad either. So
Yeah. I know there are some notes there. You got any hot items on the board? I know that 24/7 actually has. We got a couple of early November announcements coming up, both of which might be trending Michigan's way, right?
Xavier Stain, he's the number 2 center in the country in the 2025 class. He's basically down to UNLV, BYU, Michigan, and I'm drawing a blank on the other school. But I know 3 seem to Stanford.
Yeah.
So those 4 are in, but he came up with his family on for Texas game or maybe Minnesota. I forgot which game it was. But he took his official to Michigan, had a great time. This coach, he really likes the pitch Michigan's giving to him. Essentially, he could be Vlad Gonin in their system for Dusty May. So I think a big thing is he wants to see kind of how Vlad is utilized, and he kind of got a little glimpse of it in that exhibition game against Oakland. He really liked what he saw. I think on top of that too, he's got a great, relationship with the coaching staff, like Justin Joyner, one of the assistant coaches that's been killing it on the West Coast.
Yeah.
It's one thing to have,
Justin's killing it.
It's one thing to have relationships and have those connections, but it's another thing to actually utilize them and seal the deal. And you've kind of seen that already. Winters Grady, he tapped into those connections on the West Coast, landing a guy like that who's one of the top shooters in the country. They went overseas just earlier today, getting Oscar Goodwin. He's got plenty of connections overseas as well. And I think this is a guy that, as of now, he's deciding November 4th. There's been a lot of buzz that he would stay closer to home. But I'm hearing Michigan starting to trend a little more in this race. And this is one I think Michigan could pull off. I think if I had to, narrow it down, I would say it's Michigan and BYU. Those would be the 2 schools, with UNLV, the hometown school, because he's from Vegas, kind of lurking as well. But I like those 2 schools right now. And then the other guy, November 9th, Trey McKinney. He's essentially a 5-star. I think he's on the composite. I don't know if he is for 24/7. But this is a guy that Michigan has been recruiting from the jump. I mean, Dusty May, this was the very first call and the first recruit once he got hired was to Trey McKinney. Orchard Lake St. Mary's phenom. This is a guy that could have left the state of Michigan. He's been playing his high school basketball here. Now it's going to be 4 straight years. He's looking to win another state title. I think he's going to do that for Orchard Lake St. Mary's. And he's got family connections to Michigan. I know the family is very high on academics. And if you look at his final 3 of USC, Georgetown, and then Michigan, there are high academic schools. But I think distance is definitely going to help Michigan. And I think also Michigan's pitch of that positionless type of basketball that they're selling him on, where he's not just going to be a 1. He's not just going to be a 2. He can play multiple spots, and he can do a lot. He's going to have the ball in his hands, but at the same time, he's not. And I think he likes that option. So I haven't put in a crystal ball, but if I do, which I probably will, it'll be from Michigan. I like Michigan a lot in that recruitment as well.
Yeah, he grew up in a Michigan family. That doesn't make him a lock per se. I think it helps. I think that his, I think that Dusty prioritizing him the way that he did right away resonated. Really, really sent a message. I think it allowed him to gain a foothold in a way that Izzo didn't count on. I think it's noteworthy. I think that probably had to sting Izzo that Michigan made the cut and I didn't. No, you didn't, you didn't make the cut. No, you didn't. Had to do the family proud. And you think about it, I think relationships are really key. I think that's one of the reasons why Georgetown is there. I think as a matter of fact, I know, for instance, that he really likes that Georgetown staff and Ed Cooley. That's one thing to really watch, really low key. There's a lot of buzz about Virginia and Ed Cooley maybe being on the move to UVA. I don't know if that's legit. I mean, but that would almost cinch it, right? If it's not already cinched, if Cooley were to hit the bricks and go down the road to Charlottesville, I mean, that would almost certainly lock Trey in to Michigan, in my opinion. But I think they lead anyway. I think that home means something to him. Being close to his his mom and dad, his siblings, grandma, they're all here. It'd be easy for them to get to games. I mean, I think that's big for him. I think that, like I said, the connection with the staff is a big deal. And then the offense, I think that is huge too. So is it a lock? I wouldn't call it a lock, but is it trending Michigan's way? I agree with you, Brice. And then you see the classes being put together. I don't think that hurts. I don't think that hurts at all. So I think it helps when you see, oh man, I can go in there with some ball players too. And you look at this class that Dusty is putting, if it all comes together, wow. Like, wow. Wow. And if you look at if it comes together for Sharon, like it looks like it's coming together, and it comes together for Dusty, like it looks like it's coming together. Wow. Wow. What a time to be following recruiting for Michigan. If it comes together for these two guys, it could be an unbelievable November. It could be an unbelievable November for Michigan football and basketball recruiting for both sports. If you talk about fireworks, it'd be unreal. Unreal.
4th of July fireworks. Not one.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Could be an unreal November for the University of Michigan. A November like we haven't seen before. So
no.
Keep an eye on it, folks. Keep an eye on it for sure. As always, if you want to stay up to speed on all things Michigan recruiting, keep it locked over on the MichiganInsider.com. We have a promo going. Like Steve Lorenz just told you, that 50% off deal. Take advantage of it while you can. It goes for a full year, and things are moving. Things are moving. When it comes to football recruiting, Babalola's in the fold. We're keeping watch on some potential things that might be just on the horizon here in football recruiting. So we're just waiting to see if things are going to happen here soon. So keep it locked. We'll keep you up to speed over on the MichiganInsider.com. Of course, things happening on the basketball front as well. We'll keep you up to speed, as I keep saying, over on the MichiganInsider.com. Until then, we'll see you next time on the next edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider.